My jealous mother couldn't handle my pregnancy before her favorite daughters, so she brought my ex into it, and what he revealed made her regret everything. It was supposed to be one of the happiest moments of my life, the moment I shared with my mom and family when I found out I was pregnant, but nothing about it was easy. I'd spent my entire life being overshadowed by my sister Mia, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in my mother's eyes. I was used to being compared to her, to being the less important one in the family. Mia was always the one who received the accolades, the praise, the admiration. Growing up, it was like I was invisible next to her, and I had come to accept that role. After all, it was easier to stay in the shadows than to try and compete. But this moment, the news I was about to share, was mine. It wasn't about Mia. It wasn't about anyone else. It was about me, my life, and my future. Or at least, I thought it would be. I had dreamt of this moment, of the joy I would share with my mother. I envisioned her reaction, the happiness, the warmth, as I told her that I was going to have a child of my own. But the reality of the conversation was far from the dream. I remember sitting down with the phone pressed against my ear, my palms sweaty and my heart racing. The silence of my apartment felt suffocating as I nervously awaited my mom's voice. I had been dreading this moment for weeks, unsure of how she would react. My mom had always had a tight grip on me, controlling almost every aspect of my life, making sure that I stayed in line while Mia lived a life full of freedom and perfection. I had always been the good daughter, following the rules, being responsible, but the one time I stepped outside the lines, when I found out I was pregnant, it felt like my world was about to fall apart. "Mom, I have something to tell you," I said, my voice wavering slightly despite my best efforts to stay calm. "What is it, sweetheart?" she responded, her voice as sweet as ever, but I could detect a subtle undertone of something else. Something I couldn't quite place. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed felt like a heavy weight pressing on my chest. The seconds seemed to stretch on for far too long. I had expected excitement, or at the very least, warmth. But when she finally spoke, her voice wasn't filled with joy. It was cold, distant, almost robotic. "Oh," she said flatly, her voice void of any emotion. "Before Mia?" The question caught me off guard. My stomach churned. Was she really asking me that? It was as if my pregnancy was something I had to justify, as if the timing of it, me getting pregnant before Mia, was a problem. I had always been in Mia's shadow, but now it seemed like I was standing in her way of something that mattered to my mother. "Mom, I started to protest, but she cut me off sharply. "Well, I suppose this was inevitable," she muttered under her breath. "Mia was always the one who was meant to be first in everything. You just couldn't let her have that one thing." I felt a sickening twist in my stomach as her words landed. I was hurt. My mother was disappointed, not because I was pregnant, but because I had beaten Mia to it. I couldn't understand why she was so focused on Mia in this moment. Why was my news, my pregnancy, reduced to a comparison? Why was Mia's life the measuring stick for mine? The words rang in my ears long after she hung up. My heart sank as I sat in the silence of my apartment, feeling more alone than I ever had before. I had hoped for her support, her excitement, her love, but all I got was a reminder that no matter what I did, I would always be second to Mia. The days that followed were filled with awkward encounters and strained conversations with my mother. She barely spoke to me, and when she did, it was always about how Mia would be the better mom, how Mia would be able to handle it better. Mia, Mia, Mia. I was tired of hearing her name, of being constantly reminded that I could never live up to my sister's picture-perfect life. I wanted to scream, to tell her that I wasn't Mia. I wasn't trying to compete with her. I was just trying to figure out how to navigate this new chapter of my life. But things only got worse when my mother decided to take matters into her own hands. She brought my ex, Derek, into the picture. Derek, the one person I had tried so hard to forget. He was the one who had left me when I needed him the most, the one who promised me the world and then walked away. The last person I wanted to see in my life again, yet there he was, standing awkwardly in front of me, as if nothing had ever happened between us. "I thought it would be good for you to have some support," my mother said with a forced smile, as if I had asked for her help in the first place. "Derek is a good guy. You two were always good together, weren't you?" For the next few weeks, Derek began showing up at my apartment, uninvited. My mother would call him, telling him to check in on me, to make sure I was doing things right. I hated the way it made me feel like I wasn't capable of handling this pregnancy on my own, like I needed someone else to tell me what to do, as if I couldn't make decisions for myself. The subtle judgment behind each visit gnawed at my self-worth. But things took a sharp turn when Derek began asking me questions. At first, they seemed innocent enough, like he was trying to catch up after all these years, but I soon realized they were loaded with meaning. He asked about my current relationship, about what my plans were for the future. He seemed oddly invested in my life again, and that's when I realized it wasn't just me he was interested in, it was my mother's approval. "Your mom thinks you made a mistake," he said one day when we were sitting on the couch together. "She doesn't think you're ready for this. She thinks Mia would be the better choice for this kind of thing." I stared at him, stunned. The shock of hearing this from Derek, of all people, made my blood boil. "You're just here because my mom thinks I'm making a mistake?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger. "You think you have any say in this?" Derek shifted uncomfortably, his face reddening. "I'm just trying to help. Your mom and I think it's better if we come together and work this out." "No," I said firmly, standing up, my frustration bubbling to the surface. I don't need your help. I don't need anyone's approval to raise this child. I'm not doing this because it's what my mom wants or what anyone else wants. I'm doing it because it's my choice." The silence between us felt like a weight that pressed on my chest. Derek didn't say anything, and the longer we sat there, the more the truth began to sink in. My mother wasn't just trying to fix things for me. She was trying to control them. She wanted to mold my life, my choices, to fit into her vision of what was best. And she would do whatever it took to make me conform to that vision, even if it meant using Derek as her pawn. As time went on, my anger toward my mother and Derek only grew. The constant interference, the insinuations, the judgment, it was suffocating. Every time I spoke to my mother, it felt like I was suffocating under the weight of her expectations. Every time Derek showed up at my door, it felt like I was being forced to relive a past I had tried so hard to move on from. I wanted to tell them both to leave me alone, to stop trying to control my life. But I didn't know how to push back without losing everything. Things came to a head the night that Derek finally revealed something I wasn't prepared for. It was late and I was at home, scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself from the overwhelming emotions that seemed to cloud my thoughts every day. I had spent weeks feeling like my life was no longer my own, like I was living in a story that wasn't mine to tell. The constant presence of Derek and my mother's subtle manipulations had worn me down, and I was just trying to find a moment of peace. My phone rang, and I saw Derek's name flash across the screen. I hesitated before answering. I didn't want to pick up. I knew he had something important to say, and I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. "Hello?" I said, my voice tight with frustration. "Hey, I need to talk to you," Derek said. His voice sounded different this time, serious, almost urgent. "What is it?" I asked, my stomach tightening. I knew this conversation wasn't going to be easy. "I know this is going to be hard to hear," he began, his words measured. "But your mom told me something tonight that I think you need to know. She told me that Mia can't have kids. She's been struggling with it for a while, and she didn't want you to know. She's been going to fertility treatments and it hasn't worked. She's devastated." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Mia, the perfect one, the one who always seemed to have everything together, was the one who couldn't have children? It was almost surreal. I had spent my life living in Mia's shadow, believing that she had it all, that everything came so easily for her, and now I was faced with the reality that my mother's golden child was struggling in a way I never expected. "Why didn't she tell me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I think she was ashamed," Derek said. "But your mom doesn't know how to handle it. She's been pretending everything's fine, but it's not." I sat in silence, trying to process what Derek had just told me. I had always believed that Mia's life was perfect, that she had everything I would never be able to have. But now, the truth was coming to light. My mother, who had always placed Mia on a pedestal, had been hiding Mia's pain all along. She was manipulating me, trying to keep me in line so Mia could take the place she believed she deserved. She didn't want me to be the one to succeed, to have what Mia couldn't. The realization hit me like a wave. My mother wasn't just jealous of my pregnancy. She was afraid that I might take something from Mia, something my mother had convinced herself was meant for her. But more importantly, she was afraid of losing control over me. She had always controlled every aspect of my life, and now that I was growing up, making my own decisions, she didn't know how to handle it. As I sat there, the weight of the situation settled in. I could see it all so clearly now. My mother's manipulation, Derek's involvement, Mia's hidden struggles, it all made sense. But the biggest revelation wasn't just about them, it was about me. I wasn't just fighting for my right to be a mother, I was fighting for my own identity, for my right to exist outside of my mother's expectations. I had spent too long living in her shadow, and now I was ready to step into the light. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need to fit into their narrative. I was going to raise my child, and I was going to do it on my own terms. The next day, I confronted my mother. I told her everything I had learned about Mia's struggles, about Derek's involvement, and about how I had been manipulated for far too long. I let her know that I would no longer stand in the shadow of her expectations. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother's face crack. She wasn't angry. She wasn't defensive. She was regretful. I had taken back my power, and in doing so, I had exposed the reality she had tried to hide. She had tried to control me for so long that she had forgotten what it meant to truly support me. And now it was too late. Was